I was born into I'd say a fairly middle class and positive and optimistic and loving family. But as I was growing up, when the topic of Germany was raised, I noticed that my mother became very angry, as if something really bad had happened in that place, and it turned her kind of to stone. And for a long time I didn't know. I just knew that the word Germans or Germany or the German language had this impact on my mother. And as I turned about 13, I began to hear and understand that there was something called the Holocaust. And as a Jewish person, I was raised just deeply believing that that part of the world is a place I couldn't go to, that there was something terrible about the German language, the German people, and it was a prejudice that I really felt justified in maintaining. Eventually, as a much older adult, I was then invited to work with teachers in Austria. And this was through a program at the City University of New York, where I am a professor of English. And I was invited to travel to Austria to work with Austrian teachers of English who were going to receive a master's degree from the City University of New York. When I got there, I realized that I was walking on the streets where Hitler walked. I was living in a town where Jews had been murdered and rounded up and sent on cattle cars. I was living in a place where Jewish teachers were told to leave. They couldn't continue to work. And I was living among people and teaching adults whose parents very likely had been Nazis. One day I was working with a small group of teachers in the classroom, and we began to talk about what we were writing. And I hesitantly said that I was writing some things about the past and the Holocaust, and I didn't really feel comfortable talking about this. And there was one woman in this group of teachers who turned to me and said, "What did you say?" I said, "Well, I'm exploring issues around the Holocaust and history, but I don't think I can share this with you." And she stood up and sort of sat up very strong, and her face was very stern. And she looked at me and she said, "How can you not? This is our history. We never talk about it, and we must." I would say now that I discovered a soul sister, I discovered a colleague, I discovered a dear friend. She saw in me someone who could help her understand her own past, and I saw in her someone who could encourage my questions. My relationship to the history has changed by virtue of making friends in the land that I was taught was full of my enemies.